I'm in the middle of last.
You're what, Bess?
I'm in the middle of the March 3rd class.
Oh, okay.
I can catch up.
You'll catch up, yes. So I'm sharing my screen now, and here we go. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So if you're following along in the PDF, it's page 170, but it doesn't matter. I'm sharing my screen, right? But so we left off here at this red S at the top of the page. The Gemara examines various circumstances in which one is permitted to receive treatment from a Gentile. Rabba Bar Chana says that Rabbi Yochanan says, with regard to any injury for which Shabbat is desecrated, one may not be treated by Gentiles. And there are those who say that Rabba Bar Chana says that Rabbi Yochanan says, with regard to any internal injury, one may not be treated by them. So just let's stop here for a second. There's a note and there's halacha. And sorry that my PDF just keeps on going to open with there. Any injury for which Shabbat is desecrated. This refers to any injury or affliction that is potentially fatal. It makes no difference whether it poses an immediate danger to the patient's life or might evolve into a dangerous malady over time. In both cases, it is permitted to desecrate Shabbat to save one's life. So immediate danger, okay? So sometimes that is, who makes the determination that someone's in immediate danger or not? So that's a whole different discussion.
Can you give an example of something that
pregnancy
might evolve into a dangerous malady?
Yeah, that's going into labor. I don't know. Back in the day before antibiotics, there could have been, someone gets a cut on their foot or something that could become dangerous. So I don't know, things like that, I guess. Not sure how to get rid of this open with thing here. But anyway, that is halacha now also with regard to any injury for which Shabbat is desecrated. One may not accept treatment from a Gentile for any injury or affliction that is severe enough to permit the desecration of Shabbat unless a Gentile is a well-known and reputable physician. This is in accordance with the first version of Rabbi Yochanan's statement following the explanation of the Rif and Rashi. That is, the Rif is Rabbi Yitzhak Al-Fasi, a rabbi from Fez, Morocco, about 100 years after Rashi, and he's known affectionately as one of the guys in the back. So you have in a traditional Gemara, just a second here. In a traditional Gemara, you have the page looking like this. So you have the Talmud in the middle here, and you'd have Rashi on this side, always on the side of the page that's closest to the spine. And then Rashi's grandchildren, the Tosafot, are on either side. Then in the back, there are more commentaries. And so you have, just a second here. Just a second. I'm just looking, there's a lot of, I'm flipping through pages because there's a lot of commentaries in the back of the Talmud. And this is Rabbeinu Asher that I'm on right now. And then before that, just a second. The Rif is usually back here too. And I'm not, I pulled out, oh, there it is. Okay, So, and another section that looks like the Gemara, you have the explanation of Rabbi Yitzchak Alfazi, and then another commentator of him called Rabbeinu Yonah from Girona. Yonah from Girona commented on the Rif. So you just all of these were put together by the Ram publishing family in Vilna in the late 1600s. So every traditional Talmud since then is published in the same way. Before then, there were separate manuscripts or editions of all the commentaries to the Gemara. So I actually don't know what Gemara looked like. No, that's not true. I do remember being in the rare book room of the JTS library, seeing like a first edition, 1400s printed edition of the Talmud. And in that edition, all the Mishnah is printed first, and then all the Gemara after that. So what the Ram family did was divide up the Gemara into the portion, the Mishnah, and then the accompanying Gemara that went along with that Mishnah, and then all the commentaries there. So the most common ones are the ones Rashi and Tosafot, and then if you're really into Talmud study, you'd study it also with the commentaries in the back. So all of that based on this. This is in accordance with the first version of Rabbi Yochanan's statement following an explanation of Rif and Rashi. The Rosh and Tur rule that it's also prohibited to accept minor treatments from a Gentile, such as bloodletting, in accordance with the opinion of Rabbeinu Tam. All right, so it's still a continuation of this discussion. When is it okay to receive treatment from a Gentile? When isn't it okay? Okay, and there are those who say, the Rabbi Bar Bar Chana says, the Rabbi Yochanan says, with regard to any internal injury, one may not be treated by them. So internal injury, there's a note. Where is that note? Okay, internal injury. Literally, this means an affliction of the cavity. Halal. Halal is, in modern Hebrew, halal is outer space. But here it's understood as the abdominal cavity. Rashi explains that this refers to any internal affliction, which is apparently the same as the interpretation in the Jerusalem Talmud. Others maintain that the phrase refers to any affliction located in one of the body's internal cavities, as opposed to one's limbs. Yet others claim that both of these explanations are correct. That is, this phrase refers to any affliction that is either internal or opposite an internal cavity.
Is that any connection to halal, Muslim?
No, no, that's an Arabic word.
Oh, okay.
And that's with an H. Halal. This is with a chet. Halal. So, totally different word. So the Gemara asks, what's the difference between the two versions of Rabbi Yochanan's statement? There's a difference between them with regard to the case of one who was injured on the back of the hand or the back of the foot. As Rav Ada Bar Matana says, that Rav says, injuries to the back of the hand and the back, that is the top. The injuries to the back of the hand and the back, that is the top of the foot, are like an internal injury, and one may desecrate Shabbat for their treatment. So that's interesting. If you have the back of the hand, that's the top of the hand, and the top of the foot, you wonder what kind of injury. Well, again, this is before modern medicine, so any kind of injury would be considered a serious injury because it could get infected, and then they had no idea about how to treat an infection. So any kind of injury could potentially, in the time of the rabbis, all the way through the Middle Ages, could be considered a life-threatening injury. Rav Zutra Bar Tovia says that, Tovia, it should be Tuvia, says that Rav says, with regard to any injury that requires a medical evaluation to determine whether or not it is fatal, one may desecrate Shabbat for its treatment. Rav Shemen Bar Abba says that Rabbi Yochanan says, and a burning fever is similar to an internal injury, and therefore one may desecrate Shabbat for its treatment. The Gemara inquires, from what point on the body is a wound considered an internal injury? Rabbi Ami explained, from the lips inward. Rabbi Eliezer raises a dilemma. With regard to afflictions located in the gums or teeth, what is the halacha? Do we say that since they are located in firm parts of the body, they are similar to external injuries? Or perhaps we say that since they are situated within the mouth, they are similar to internal injuries. Abaye said, come and hear proof from a Mishnah. One who is concerned about pain in his teeth may not sip vinegar through them on Shabbat for medicinal purposes, as it's generally prohibited by rabbinic law to perform acts of healing on Shabbat. That is, if it's not life-threatening, then you shouldn't do anything that otherwise would desecrate Shabbat on Shabbat. So sipping vinegar might be considered, even though there's nothing wrong with drinking on Shabbat, it's a medicinal act, and you shouldn't do that on Shabbat, according to Abaye. Abaye infers it's only when he's merely concerned about pain in his teeth that he may not treat them, which indicates that if it hurts him greatly, it is permitted to seek treatment. The Gemara rejects this inference. Perhaps the Tana, the rabbi of the Baraita or the Mishnah, also characterizes a situation where it hurts one greatly as one of mere concern. There is, okay, so there's a note here about the gums. Maybe, although Rashi interprets this word as referring to the gums, most commentaries maintain that the word kache are molars, the large teeth used to grind food in the mouth. The Gemara uses the word teeth to refer to other teeth. So there are big teeth that could be kache, or it's the gums that are kache. So, and then one who is concerned about pain in his teeth here on the side in the halacha, one who has a toothache on Shabbat may not rinse his mouth with vinegar. It's permitted to sip and swallow the vinegar or to dip one's food in vinegar. Okay, so that's Rambam, who was a physician also, saying what would be permitted to do with vinegar for your teeth on Shabbat. Okay, and then here we are. Now we're on page 171. The Gemara suggests a different proof. Come and hear the following incident. Rabbi Yochanan suffered from the illness safdina, which affects the teeth and gums. So there was language, safdina. Some commentaries explain this term originates from the Greek sepidon, meaning decay. Others associated with the root sadi pe dalid, which means contraction or compression. The descriptions in the Talmud indicate that safdina is a name for scurvy, which occurs due to a vitamin C deficiency. Symptoms include weakening of the gums, loss of teeth, internal bleeding, and anemia. Okay, so Rabbi Yochanan suffered from the illness safdina, which affects the teeth and gums. He went to a certain Gentile matron who was a well-known healer. She prepared medicine for him on Thursday and Friday. Rabbi Yochanan said to her, "What shall I do tomorrow on Shabbat when I can't come to collect the medicine from you?" She said to him, "You will not need it." Rabbi Yochanan asked her, "If I don't need it, what should I do? If I do need it, what should I do?" She said to him, "Take an oath to me that you will not reveal the remedy, and I'll tell you so that you can prepare it yourself should you need it." Rabbi Yochanan took an oath to her, "To the God of the Jews, I will not reveal it." She revealed the remedy to him. On the following day, Rabbi Yochanan went out and taught it publicly, revealing the secret of the remedy. So that was kind of nasty of him. And so there's a couple of notes here. What shall I do tomorrow? Since Rabbi Yochanan would teach in the study hall on Shabbat, he was reluctant to neglect his students and travel to the matron. And then taught it publicly, Rabbi Yochanan reasoned that as this knowledge contained the potential to save lives, it was permitted for him to obtain and teach it even by deceptive means. Right. So, it's not a good, it's not Yochanan is a major scholar and leader of the community of Israel in a transition generation between the Mishnah and the Gemara. So here he is deceiving Gentiles, not a really good thing to do. So the Gemara challenges. But Rabbi Yochanan took an oath to her that he would not reveal her secret. The Gemara explains that his vow meant, I will not reveal it to the God of the Jews, which indicates, but I will reveal it to his people, the Jews. The Gemara challenges, but even so, isn't there a desecration of God's name? As the matron now thinks that a great man of Rabbi Yochanan's stature violated his vow? The Gemara answers that he revealed it to her at the outset. As soon as she discloses a remedy to him, he informed her that his vow would not prevent him from publicizing it. So in other words, maybe he did tell her, even though, so the story itself didn't say that he told her what he was going to do, but other people are understanding the story that he must have told her that he was going to do that. So don't.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
So then what? So what good is taking a vow then if you're just gonna renege on it?
I don't know. Certainly, Rabbi Yochanan wanted to get better, and so he was being selfish. But then the following generations of commentaries, the Gemara and others, are explaining, well, that Yochanan could not have been such a terrible person, and also to desecrate God's name, he must have revealed to her that he was going to reveal the formula. So, with regard to the issue at hand, what it also might get to the idea of, can we take advantage of Gentiles, and whether it's safe to do that, right? So in other words, depending where you live and how oppressive the Gentile authorities are, it may or may not be a good idea to take advantage of Gentiles. So even though there could be an underlying, well, not so underlying, we have seen in this chapter so far the negative impression that Gentiles have on the rabbis. You think that Gentiles are going to kill you, they're always out to get you, and it should be okay to take advantage. You would think that they're idolaters by nature, just evil people. So it could be okay to take advantage of them. But at the same time, the rabbis understand that in the time they were living, the rabbis of the Mishnah were under Roman rule. And if the Romans found out that something was done against a Roman, maybe the punishment would be pretty severe. So you have those two ideas going hand in hand, that Gentiles are bad people, should be okay to take advantage of them and should try to stay away from them. And yet at the same time, you have to be careful of them too. So
perhaps he took advantage of the fact that she was a woman, and he would not have done it to a male.
Okay, that's possible. I'm not sure, but that is possible too. Yeah. But the fact that he went to her because she was an expert in this, and that he was going to get better, says something too. So yeah. So the several questions that we're left with from the story. So with regard to the issue at hand, the Gemara infers, apparently an affliction that affects the gums is similar to an internal injury, as it was permitted for Rabbi Yochanan to prepare the remedy on Shabbat. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak said, Safdina is different, since it begins in the mouth and ends in the intestines. That is, the disease spreads until it infects one's intestines, and therefore it's considered an internal affliction, even while it's only in the mouth. Consequently, the incident involving Rabbi Yochanan affords no proof, and Rabbi Eliezer's dilemma remains unresolved. Right? So we're still wondering, what is internal? Is mouth considered internal? The Gemara inquires, what are the symptoms of tzafdina? If one places an item between his teeth, blood flows from the rows of teeth. From what does it result? It results from the consumption of very cold wheat foods and from very hot barley foods and from remains of fried fish. Casa de Harsena. With what remedy did the Gentile matron treat Rabbi Yochanan? Rabbi Acha, son of Rava, said it was water in which leaven was steeped, olive oil, and salt. And Rav Bar Rav Ashi said she smeared goose fat over his gums with a goose feather. Okay, so there are plenty of stories like this throughout the Gemara about remedies for medical conditions that certainly, if we tried this today, it would be ridiculous to do that. But in their day, they had no better solution for these things. So what causes safdina? Well, very cold wheat food or very hot barley food. But if it's scurvy, we know it's a lack of vitamin C, right? I think sailors commonly got scurvy. And that's why oranges, I think, were brought on ships to make sure that sailors had their dose of vitamin C.
That's why they were called limeys, because they.
There you go. There you go. Right. So, and then or the remains of fried fish could cause safdina. So who knows? And then what the remedy is: water in which leaven was steeped, olive oil and salt. Okay, or maybe it was goose fat over his gums with a goose feather. Okay, that sounds pretty gross too.
I'm
Abaye, kosher.
Yeah, well, that's interesting.
That's your kosher goose.
So that's interesting too, right? So did the matron prepare this goose fat from a kosher slaughtered goose or not? So, yeah, so that's a good question. But then also Rambam says himself 1,000 years ago that if a doctor tells you to eat treif in order to get better, then you have to eat treif. So again, those are for the life-threatening situations. Was this safdina of Rabbi Yochanan's life-threatening?
I'm surprised that eyes haven't been mentioned, because you lose your eyesight, it's like a death sentence at those days.
This is just that could be mentioned some other place. Abaye said, I prepared all of these medicines and was not cured from this ailment until a certain Arab told me the remedy for it. Take olive seeds that are less than 1/3 ripe and burn them in a fire on top of a new hoe and stick them along the row of gums. I did this and was cured. Now, why it has to be a hoe and not some other metal implement, and why the olive seeds have to be new olive seeds, but whatever. Olives are fruit. Do they have vitamin C in them? Who knows? Okay. It was stated, kind of a different topic. It was stated above that Rabbi Yochanan sought the medical attention of a Gentile. The Gemara asks, and how could Rabbi Yochanan do so? Doesn't Rabbi Bar Chana say that Rabbi Yochanan says, with regard to any injury for which Shabbat is desecrated, one may not be treated by Gentiles? Safdina is a disease for which Shabbat is desecrated, and yet Rabbi Yochanan was treated by a Gentile. The Gemara answers, an important person such as Rabbi Yochanan is different, as Gentiles would not dare to kill him. Right? So we have to such a serious disease that would require treatment on Shabbat. You don't want that. There was the debate a couple pages ago that in which the rabbis discussed if your life is threatened, do you want to trust a Gentile with your life or not? So the rabbis had different answers for that. The Gemara questions this, but Rabbi Abahu was an important person, and yet Yaakov the heretic placed upon his leg a salve that was actually a poison. And if it were not for Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi, who licked his leg to remove the poison, his leg would have had to be amputated. Apparently, Yaakov the heretic attempted to kill Rabbi Abahu, despite the fact that Rabbi Abahu was an important person. So in other words, here's if you think that Gentiles aren't going to attempt to kill important Jews, here's a story in which the heretic, Yaakov the heretic, put a salve on Rabbi Abahu's leg. So here we have in the background who licked his leg. Apparently, Rabbi Abahu was suffering from an open wound on his leg, which Yaakov the heretic attempted to infect with a poison that would have spread throughout the bloodstream. Many poisons, such as snake venom, are effective only when administered directly to the bloodstream, but are not harmful when swallowed because they are neutralized in the stomach. For this reason, Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi were able to extract the poison from the wound orally.
First of all, how did they know which venom it was, which poison it was? And secondly, why didn't they just wash it off or wipe it off if they didn't have water? I mean, did they do it simultaneously? I mean, it's a picture. It's crazy.
Some of these stories, Bess, are not meant to be have factual questions asked of them. It's more for the point that the story is trying to teach, rather than the logic that's involved or the illogic that's involved in the story itself. So yes, we have these questions, but the point is not to ask those questions. The point is that Rabbi Abahu was an important person, and yet a Gentile or a heretic tried to kill him. So the idea is that Gentiles and heretics aren't going to try to kill Jews. So the Gemara explains the healer of Rabbi Yochanan was an expert physician who would not jeopardize her reputation by harming him. The Gemara rejects this explanation, but the healer of Rabbi Abahu was an expert physician. The Gemara answers the case involving Rabbi Abahu is different, as heretics establish within themselves the attitude of, let me die with the Philistines. That is, heretics are willing to risk their lives in order to hurt Jews due to their religious disputes. By contrast, Gentiles will not jeopardize their own reputation for this purpose, and therefore it was permitted for Rabbi Yochanan to be treated by the matron. So again, there's a difference between Gentiles and heretics. That is, Jews who go to the other side, as opposed to born Gentiles. Okay, so that born Gentiles could be concerned about their reputation. Heretics are not. Okay, so the Gemara now lists a series of afflictions and their remedies. Shmuel said, this gash caused by a sword is considered a danger to one's life, and one may desecrate Shabbat for its treatment. The Gemara asks, what's the remedy for this wound? To stop the blood flow, one should consume cress soaked in vinegar. To cause flesh to emerge over the gash, one applies a salve made of yavla scrapings and thornbush scrapings, or salve made from worms of the trash. Okay, so that doesn't sound like it's going to be too helpful. Worms from trash. So here we have some notes here. Cress soaked in vinegar. Rashi states that the patient drinks cress soaked in vinegar. A slightly different version of the text reads, a spice soaked in vinegar. The Rashbam interprets this to mean that one rubs a vinegar-soaked spice, such as pepper or cumin, over the wound. That is, to get it to stop, to get the blood to stop flowing. Yavla scrapings. Rashi states that one scrapes off the roots of a yavla plant and places them upon the wound. The Rashbam explains that yavla refers to material that is scraped from worn clothing. Worms of the trash. Rashi explains that this is a reference to the worms that chickens eat from the trash. Alternatively, it means dung found in a trash heap. Okay, so Rav Safra said, these grape-like boils are the forerunners of the angel of death. That is, they often precede one's death. The Gemara asks, what's the remedy? The remedy is either a tigna plant soaked in honey or parsley soaked in wine. So a tigna plant soaked in honey or parsley soaked in wine. In the meantime, while the plants are soaking, one should bring a grape of the same size, that is for the grape size boils, and rub it on the boil. A white grape for a white boil, and a black grape for a black boil. Rava said, this abscess is the forerunner of fever. The Gemara asks, what's the remedy? One should snap itkutle, the boil, 60 times with his finger. That is, click one's fingers on the boil, and then he should tear it vertically and horizontally. The Gemara comments, and this statement applies only in a case where the head of the abscess has not whitened. But if its head has whitened, we have no problem with it. That is, it's in the process of healing, and it does not pose any danger. Rabbi Yaakov suffered from hemorrhoids. Rabbi Ami instructed him, and some say that Rabbi Asi instructed him, that he should bring 7 seeds of ice plant. And here we have a nice color picture of an ice plant. So this is an annual plant that grows in the Judean foothills and the Sharon region of Eretz Israel, among stones and walls facing the sea. Its many bladder cells give the plant a sparkling appearance, leading to its common name of the ice plant. Its leaves contain a considerable amount of soda, and it can be used as a substitute for soap when crushed. Who knew? Okay, Rabbi Ami instructed him, and some say that Rabbi Asi instructed him that he should bring 7 seeds of ice plant that are red like a worm, and bind them in the collar of a shirt, and then he should wrap a strip of hair around it, and dip the bundle in white naphtha, and he should burn it and spread the ashes upon the sores. In the meantime, he should bring the kernel of a bramble fruit and place its crevice against his own crevice. Okay, you gotta laugh at these so-called remedies.
I'm glad the 2 rabbis didn't lick it.
Yeah, that's right. Gemara remarks, and this matter applies only to the upper crevice, which is located at the outer edge and can be treated with bramble fruit. I just want to avoid saying certain words, like I did in Bible class on Friday, calling it a donkey instead of the other word. What should one do if he is experiencing pain in the lower crevice, located deeper inside? He should bring the fat of a goat that is not yet open, that is given birth, and he should melt it, and then he should apply it to the irritated area. Okay, and if this is not possible, he should bring 3 pumpkin leaves that were dried in the shade, and he should burn them, and then he should spread the ashes upon the irritated area. Yeah, you just think about this. Who has these things ready for use, right? Certain fats of certain animals, all these plants, pumpkin leaves that are dried in the sun, as opposed to pumpkin leaves that are dried in the shade, right? It's amazing the kinds of home remedies that people had. Well, but again, there are certain gardens that you go to, right? That on big estates, old time estates, where they would have the home garden and all these herbs that would be grown in the garden, also for home use, and different folk remedies for certain problems that we would have. So if you bring these pumpkin leaves that were dried in the shade, should burn them, and then he should spread the ashes upon the irritated area. And if this is not possible, he should bring snail shells instead. And if this is also not possible, he should bring oil mixed with wax, and he should smear it upon worn flax clothing in summer, or worn cotton clothing in winter, and place it upon the irritated area. Rabbi Abahu suffered from pain in his ear. Rabbi Yochanan instructed him, and some say that other sages from the study hall instructed him how to heal it. The Gemara asks, what did they instruct him? They told him to act in a fashion similar to that which Abaye said. My mother told me that the kidney was created only for the ear. That is, it can be extremely beneficial to the ear. And Rava said, Minyumi, the physician, said to me, all liquids are harmful to the ear, except for the fluid of kidneys. Therefore, Rabbi Abahu should bring the kidney of a bald goat and tear it vertically and horizontally, and then place it upon dimming coals. And as for those fluids that issue from it, he should apply them to his ear while they are neither cold nor hot, but tepid. The Gemara adds, and if this is not possible, he should bring the fat of a large beetle and melt it and apply it to the ear. And if not, he should fill his ear with oil and prepare 7 wicks made of alfalfa and bring dried garlic ends and tie the ends of the wick with a strip of hair at one end and set the wicks aflame. And he should place the other end of each wick in his ear, one at a time, and place his ear opposite the flame. Parenthetically, the Gemara notes, and he should be cautious of drafts and avoid them, as they will harm his ear. The Gemara continues, and he should take 1 wick and remove 1 wick, that is, replace each wick as it is consumed until all 7 have been used. The Gemara presents another version of this remedy, and if not, he should bring 7 wicks of wax tapers and smear them with alfalfa oil and place 1 end of each wick in the flame and 1 end in his ear, and take 1 wick and remove 1 wick. And again, he should be cautious of drafts. And if this is not possible, he should bring fiber that was dried but not combed and place it in his ear, and then bring his ear opposite the flame. And he should be cautious of drafts. And if not, he should bring the tube of an aged reed that is 100 years old, that has been detached from the ground for a century, and salt it with rock salt, and then burn it and stick it in his ear. The Gemara adds, and your mnemonic to remember these remedies is this: moist cures are prescribed for dry afflictions, and dry cures are prescribed for moist afflictions. Or in Aramaic, retiva liveshta, viaveshta liretiva. Okay, so that's how you're supposed to remember what kind of remedy for what kind of problem. Okay, the Gemara returns to the issue of medical treatment on Shabbat. Rabbah Bar Zutra says that Rabbi Hanina says, one may raise his ears to their appropriate position, that is, set his dislocated jaw on Shabbat. Rav Shmuel Bar Yehud, I don't know how one gets his jaw dislocated, but you're allowed to fix his dislocated jaw on Shabbat. Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda teaches, so there's a halacha here. So let's see the halacha on a dislocated jaw. Here, background. One may raise his ears. As Rashi explains, this refers to a situation in which the lower jaw has been dislocated and must be set back in its place. Since the temporomandibular joint is situated near the ear, the process of setting the jaw in its proper position is called raising the ears. Okay, I guess this was a common problem that the rabbis knew what to do about it. Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda teaches this applies only if one raises it by hand, but not by means of medicine. I'm not sure how you can cure a dislocated joint with medicine. There are those who say the opposite. One may raise his ears by means of medicine, but not by hand. What's the reason that one may not manually raise the ear? It's because doing so might injure the ear, which would constitute a violation of Torah law, whereas applying medicine is a violation of rabbinic law, right? So if you cause an injury on Shabbat, that's a violation of Shabbat according to the Torah, but applying medicine on Shabbat is only a rabbinic violation, not a Torah violation. Rav Zutra Bar Tuvia says, that Rav says, with regard to an eye that rebelled, that is, which is apt to pop out of its socket. So an eye that rebelled. Rashi explains that this refers to an eye that is close to bursting out of its socket, much like a rebellious person seeking to escape his surroundings. Other explain the Gemara is referring to a condition in which excess, okay, what happened to that? That's interesting that there's that typo there and nobody caught that. Okay. So an eye that rebelled from halacha, one may desecrate Shabbat in order to treat an eye that is emitting excessive tears or blood, or which is severely infected in accordance with the opinion of Shmuel. Okay, so a rebellious eye, okay, which is apt to pop. It is permitted to apply blue eyeshadow to it on Shabbat. The sages initially concluded from this that this statement applies only where one had already ground the ingredients yesterday, that is, on Shabbat Eve. But if he planned to grind them on Shabbat or to bring them through a public domain, it would not be permitted, as this would constitute a desecration of Shabbat by Torah law. To dispel this notion, one of the sages named Rabbi Yaakov said to them, this matter was explained to me by Rav Yehuda, who said that if he plans to grind the ingredients on Shabbat and bring it through a public domain, it is permitted. So the background about applying blue eyeshadow. The blue eyeshadow is in common use during Talmudic times, possessed certain medicinal properties due to the antimony it contained. Eyeshadow was applied by means of a special brush called a mahol. Accordingly, the act of its application is called kechila. So, and that mahol and kechila are from the word kahol, kaf chet lamed, which means blue. Okay, so whatever this rebellious eye is, there's a debate as to whether one can treat it on Shabbat or not. The Gemara asks, what ailment of the eye, for example, is considered life-threatening? Rav Yehuda said, for example, any of the following: abnormal discharge, the sensation of pricking, blood flow from the eye, excessive tearing, and inflammation, and the onset of infection. This list serves to exclude the final stages of a waning infection that is mostly healed, and the opening of the eye, that is, treatment administered to improve one's eyesight, which are not life-threatening, and therefore one is not permitted to treat them on Shabbat. Rav Yehuda says, with regard to one who suffers from the sting of a hornet, or the prick of a thorn, or an abscess, or one whose eye pains him, or one overcome by a fever, bathing in a bathhouse is a life-threatening danger for all of these. Additionally, eating radish is good for a fever, and eating beets is good for chills, but the reverse, that is, eating radish when one has chills, or beets when one has a fever, poses a danger. Similarly, eating hot foods is good for the sting of a scorpion, and cold foods are good for a hornet sting, but the reverse poses a danger. Hot water is good for a thorn embedded in one's skin, and cold water for facial wounds, but the reverse presents a danger. Vinegar is good for one to consume after bloodletting, and eating small fat fish is good for one who has completed a fast, but the reverse is a danger. Eating cress and then undergoing bloodletting poses a danger. With regard to one who suffers from a fever and undergoes bloodletting, this poses a danger to his life. Similarly, one who suffers from pain of the eye and undergoes bloodletting endangers his life. On the second day after eating fish, one may let blood, and on the second day after letting blood, one may eat fish. With regard to eating fish on the third day after letting blood, or letting blood on the third day after eating fish, both of these actions pose a danger. The Gemara presents a series of health-related statements. The sages taught, one who lets blood may not eat the following foods corresponding to the acronym Chet Gimel Bet Shin. That is, he may consume neither. That means he may not consume milk or cheese or onions or cress. If he ate one of these, Abaye said, he should bring a quarter log of vinegar and a quarter log of wine and mix them together and drink the mixture. And when he defecates, he should defecate only toward the east of the city, because the odor of the excrement after that treatment is offensive. Since the wind does not usually blow from the east, it's less likely to spread the stench. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, one may lift the unkali on Shabbat. The Gemara asks, what is the unkali? Rabbi Abba said, it's the edge of the ribs, near the heart, which sometimes bend inward, in which case they must be lifted and straightened into their proper positions. The Gemara asks, what is the cure for one whose unkali has been bent? He should take cumin, caraway, mint, wormwood, satureja, and hyssop. This remedy is beneficial for several ailments, and the Gemara presents each of these in turn. For curing the heart, the above combination should be taken with wine, and your mnemonic for this is the verse, and wine that makes glad the heart of man. For curing an ailment that arises due to the wind, one drinks the mixture in water, and your mnemonic for this is the verse, and the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the waters. For childbirth, a woman in labor drinks the mixture with beer, and your mnemonic for this is the verse, with her pitcher upon her shoulder. Rav Acha, son of Rava, ground all of these together and took a handful of the mixture and drank it. Rav Ashi ground each and every one of the herbs separately, and he took all that he could hold between his large finger and his small finger and drank it. Rav Papa said, I tried all these remedies and I was not healed until a certain Arab said to me, bring a new jug and fill it with water and place in it a ladle of honey that is suspended among the stars. That is, add the ladle at night and drink it on the next day. Rav Papa concludes, I did this and was healed. 1022 on a new page. Okay, let's do these two paragraphs. The sages taught 6 items heal a sick person from his illness, and their cure is a permanent cure. And these are cabbage, beets, water in which dried chamomile was soaked, and the stomach contents of an animal, and the womb of an animal, and the lobe of the liver. And some say small fish are also included in this list. And moreover, eating small fish causes a person's entire body to flourish and to grow. 10 items return a sick person to his illness, and his illness becomes even more severe than it originally was. And they are one who eats ox meat, fat, roasted meat, bird meat, and a roasted egg, and cress, and the act of shaving and bathing, and the consumption of cheese and liver. And some say nuts are also included in this list. And some say cucumbers are also included in this list. The school of Rabbi Ishmael taught, why are they called cucumbers? Because they are as harmful to a person's entire body as swords. Okay, so now you understand the ridiculousness of these ideas, right? Nuts, nobody says nuts is bad for you. Nobody says cucumbers are bad for you, right? And some say liver is pretty good for you in certain circumstances. So anyway, this is so interesting topic as we go off tangent, dealing with Gentiles to how to do some home remedies. So,
yeah, I was wondering why they would even have remedies like that in the Talmud. I mean, they're not doctors. It's not Jewish law.
But I think the rabbis are getting to the all-around idea of all-around good health, and certainly study of Torah And performing the mitzvot is spiritual health, which should lead to good health. But then there's a whole section on dreams in one part of the Talmud. There's a whole section on demons and remedies for getting your house, exorcising demons from your house. So the whole folkloric kind of ideas are included in the Talmud too. And perhaps these are the most common and least injurious of all these folk remedies. So better to have them in a Talmud than to have people going off on their own trying to find other remedies.
Didn't the Torah have a remedy for leprosy with the cabin and the
It's
wiping?
not a cure. It's just either it gets better by itself or it doesn't. So a Kohen has to look at the particular rash to see if it's going to be a rash that gets better or not. It doesn't say what to do to help it get better.
So for people who think that the Talmud, came from God at Mount Sinai as part of the oral tradition, how would you look at?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Lori, because certainly the Rambam, like I said, he was a physician in quotes, because he was from the 1100s. So whatever medical science there was at the time, it was something. I mean, the Arab doctors were considered good doctors in the medieval world, and there are people who studied with Arabs, and that is Muslims, to learn the trade of being a doctor. So and then there are certain kind of remedies that were more sophisticated in Rambam's time than in Talmudic times. So he would adjust some of these, I'm sure, in his commentary and say, well, not quite. This is the known remedy today. So don't go by this one, go by this one. And then I think in each generation then, as knowledge became more sophisticated, then we would just understand that we don't follow these remedies at all anymore. Okay, and we just go by, and it's clear from halachic sources today that you go with tried and true medical remedies and not folkloric remedies anymore. Yeah. So to your point, yes, oral Torah is given to Moses at Mount Sinai, but the oral Torah, in terms of the Mishnah and the Gemara, for some, in the non-Orthodox world, oral Torah continues into our own time. All right, we have to stop here for today. Have a good rest of the day, everybody. I think we're on for next Sunday, but that's the 17th. But the 24th is Purim, and we won't have Talmud class then. Hopefully you'll come to shul for our Purim activities that day. Take care,
Good
everybody.
luck, everyone.
Good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.